Top Boxer vlog. Bang, let's go. I'm getting dressed out of focus because, you know. Welcome to this week's special edition of the Top Boxer vlog. Umar Sadiq's about to do this in one take. I should just do the whole vlog like this. First question comes from Emperor24_7 on Instagram. Dear Sadiq, I've gone through your pictures, videos and documentary and I've acknowledged your hard work / graft and I admire it. I'm 16 and looking to smash this boxing business and I'd be grateful if you could give me real advice on commitment and training. Also, when you arrive to semi-pro boxing, what's the lowest you can get paid? I like where your mind is at. It's all about the money, man. Right, so first thing is, there isn't such a thing as semi-pro boxing. You're either an amateur, which I don't think it's a very accurate name for what it is, but an amateur boxer, which means you're Olympic style boxing. You can go professional, but there isn't such a thing as semi-pro. Commitment and training, I think they speak for themselves. You must have heard countless of times growing up about the importance of commitment and training. So many people fail to follow through on these things or believe that they have excusable reasons to not give their all in what they're doing, but ultimately I believe in universal laws and I believe that to every action there's a reaction. Beyond that, there are certain things that are just are. Beyond the physical realms, there are rules besides gravity. If you are deliberate in what you're doing, meaning you have a goal and you're intentionally working towards it, you will get it so long as you're consistent and you maintain the right attitude even when things get hard. So in reference to this question, that would be, for example, when you're tired, when you're aching, when it's difficult to get to training, you just need to keep going because overall, people say hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work, but beyond the hard work, you need to also work smart, and consistency is the major key. So stay consistent, continue to believe in your dream and things will work out for you. And in terms of money, boxing is one of these unfair games. It's unlike football or other regulated games that are regulated by one body where, you know, you get a professional contract and you know how much you're going to be getting. I've known of fighters to fight and actually had to spend their own money in order to be able to box. Some fighters might make a couple of £100, about a couple, I literally mean a couple, maybe £200. Fighters on small halls, you know, they really have a hard time because they make the money from a commission on the tickets they're selling. Then you have fighters that are with big promoters, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, David Hay, I guess to some extent, Cyclone Promotions, and then abroad you've got that's Golden Boy, Tom Frank and the rest. The majority of fighters would have a purse, and the purse is a guaranteed fee that you're paid before the fight. Basically, it starts from as little as having to pay to get to box to maybe earning a few £100, but then also it could be thousands of pounds. The bigger your profile is, the more people you draw in, and the more people you draw in, the more you get paid. So build your profile, son. King Wolfie41. It says, I've been trying to start boxing. I've done research, but the coolest gym is too far, and I've done what I can at home. But I would like to know how I can start an amateur career with my current circumstances. King Wolfie, this is a hard one. I'll go lay it to you straight. Now seriously, it's a hard one, but the best you can do, like you said, is train at home. Maybe find someone that doesn't live too far from you who would be happy to work with you, and actually there could be a Hollywood movie that can come out of that. You know, you guys had no gym, you started working together, eventually something became of what you're doing. Next suggestion would be to find the nearest amateur boxing gym to you and maybe reach an agreement with them where, even if it means working on your fitness when you're alone, and then when you go into the boxing gym, they strictly have you sparring, hitting the pads, hitting the bags, and just teaching you nuances about boxing. That would still allow you to develop. Hope that helped. Without knowing your exact circumstances, I understand that it might not have. English title, that's how I'm about to be before the end of 2018. Next question from Finn03 Scott. It says, what do you think is the most effective method of training? This is an easy one, Finn. Sparring. I think nothing comes close to sparring when you're training for a boxing match because it's the nearest thing to the actual action that you're going to be having, especially if you're sparring in different gyms, so you're in different environments, sometimes hostile, different people watching that you don't know. If you have different people come to you as well, that could be as effective. Or if you're working with your own sparring partners, when I say your own sparring partners, I mean your gym mates, then you can work on drills, so that will be replicating certain movements or maneuvers that you want to work on, or just limiting what you guys are allowed to do, which would force you to get better at the things that you are allowed to do, so that progressively over time your skill set's developed highly, and then when you have a competitive spar or a fight, you go all out, man, and you feel free. Next one's from Sports Law Tom. What's going on, Tom? This is again on Instagram. It says, hey Umar, question for the blog. How do the challenges of working in a professional environment such as accountancy differ from those of being a professional boxer? What do you think professionals can learn from elite sportsmen, and what can elite sportsmen learn from professionals? So he's asking this, I guess, because I was an accountant a year and a bit ago before I retired to focus full-time on boxing. Right, so the thing is, elite sportsmen and women are professionals, but just within their own field. So I would say the same basics of professional conduct still stand. So that would be being disciplined enough to follow through on whatever tasks that you have to carry out. Main difference here would be that as a professional sports person, most of your tasks are self-made. So you are autonomous and you make your own targets and you're responsible for achieving them. All the main qualities still stand, so it'll be the likes of timekeeping, following through, having professional etiquette. I know that in sports a lot of times a lot of players or performers do things that they shouldn't do, but there's usually some form of media backlash to it. A great example will be, for example, within the boxing context, Anthony Joshua, who carries himself well. You hardly find him swearing until recently with Jarrell Miller. He's very polite, and he's someone who you can look at and you can carry that same package and put into your traditional office environment. But with that, Anthony Joshua is also the most successful from a commercial perspective. So clearly, conducting yourself professionally like you would do in an office environment also follows through in sport. But besides that, it's great that I need nobody's permission to take a day off. I need nobody's permission to go away. So I work around my own timetable. Even though I have a coach and a manager and a promoter and what have you, ultimately I am the boss. So I would say for the most part, when you're a professional athlete, you are your own boss. And it's almost like being the owner of a small business. So there's your answer, Tom. Again on Instagram from Mashari_Algamdi. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but it's Alghamdi. It says, hey man, did you win your first fight outside of pros? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Oh, very good questions. So first question, did you win your first fight outside of the pros? No, I didn't. My first fight was actually in the Haringey Box Cup in 2009, I believe it was. And I boxed against another guy who I believe had about 11 fights at the time. So before I started boxing, I was boxing for fitness, and everything I did was about counter punching and defense and waiting for the other person to go off first. So I got in the ring really confident with all the skills that I had, and the guy I was boxing also was a counter puncher. So we basically spent 3 rounds looking at each other and throwing about 8 punches per round apiece. So it was a very close fight because it was a battle of who threw the least punches. He got the decision, but I've got no qualms of it because really there was no action in the fight. But what I did after that was I went back, I reflected, I knew I was better than what happened, and I just said to myself, well, if action is what the judges want, then action is what I'm going to give them. And from my second fight to my 12th fight, I think, I was about all out aggression, and I won pretty much all those fights. So the way you start isn't the way that you're necessarily good. Basically, it's the way that you end that really matters. So regardless of how you started, believe in yourself, stay true to the craft, be consistent. So stick at your craft, keep grinding, keep your focus, keep your goal in mind, and it will all work out. I lost my first amateur fight. Today I'm a professional boxer, boxing under Frank Warren Promotions. Best in the game. You know how it is. And the best piece of advice I've ever received: believe in yourself, because your opinion is the only one that matters when you get in that ring by yourself. Babes, come out. Next question comes from, right, so this is Andrew. I actually know this guy. So this is Andrew. I don't remember his Instagram because I didn't screenshot the bit that's got his Instagram in it. But anyway, Andrew, big up yourself, you know who you are. It says, who's your favourite British super middleweight of all time and why? My answer is, you can't beat Joe Calzaghe, man. He did everything his way. He even beat one of my favourite fighters of all time, Roy Jones. He beat Hopkins. I mean, regardless of when he beat them, he was also near the end of his career, so you got to give him his credit. remarkable work rate, southpaw. I do like to switch sometimes, and you know, to be able to switch and box like Joe Calzaghe is something I love to do, and put a beating on somebody. But yeah, so Joe Calzaghe 100% without a doubt, and the beating he put on Eubank as well, that was class. Jeff Lacey is all going into the Jeff Lacey fight. People talking about Jeff Lacey being the next Mike Tyson, and he was meant to be this indestructible force from America, and Calzaghe just went in there, absolutely schooled him. So Joe Calzaghe, big up yourself. Mark Anson. Hi mate, as part of the Q&A, I was wondering whether you would mind letting us know about your goal in boxing and where you would like to finish up. Mark, my goal in boxing is to get to the world stage as soon as possible so that I can cash in as many checks as possible for the rest of my career. But ultimately it's to dominate the super middleweight division. By dominate, I mean be the undisputed super middleweight champion. And after that, I can either go down to middleweight or go up to light heavyweight. That's undecided as of yet. But whichever division I go to, I'd like to go there and dominate that too, be the undisputed champion at that too. And after that, I think, you know, in about 9 or 10 years, I'll be ready to hang up the gloves and move on to the next phase of life. Sup, V?
You're really cute.
From official_Drew83. He says, who was your favourite boxer growing up? Also, would you say your boxing style is unique, or is there someone you moulded yourself around? Well, growing up, I was absolutely not into boxing. Actually, I fell into boxing by accident. I boxed for 3.5 years just for fitness before even deciding I was going to fight. So that's the first bit of the question. Second bit, would you say your boxing style is unique? I would say yes, because I'm a cerebral boxer. I box in an adaptable fashion. My style is unique because I'm consistently problem solving, and I do things based on what's required at the time to be the dominant person in that ring. And the last bit of that question, who would you say you molded yourself around? There isn't one particular person, but I've watched a lot of fighters growing up. I've watched a lot of boxing. I did about 4 hours a day of tape study when I decided I was going to start boxing. Through all that time, some of the fighters that stood out to me: Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, definitely Sugar Ray Robinson, Rocky Marciano, Larry Holmes with his good jab, Ali obviously because of the movement, Sugar Ray Leonard because of his will to win and his desire, and how he was always able to find a second wind even in the 14th round against Hearns. Marvin Hagler for his toughness, how dynamic he was and able to switch stances and still be effective. Tommy Hearns for being a tall, rangy fighter, working behind the jab, whipping the left hook to the body and having that killer right hand that I'm still trying to learn. I like the entertainment of Prince Nazim. I like the sheer talent. I like movers. I like fighters who are different, who are athletic, who have great reflexes, who are entertainers. And even up until recent days, actually, there's certain things that the likes of Lomachenko do, and I'll watch them, I'm like, wow, that's great, I'll try that. Pacquiao influenced me at some point. Floyd Mayweather influenced me. So I mold myself on all these fighters combined, and so I just pick good from wherever I see it, because why limit yourself when you can have it all? Next question, Mr. Franklin Ignatius on Instagram. He says, what was the biggest transition between amateur and pro, and when is the right time to make that step? Oh, a very good question and a very hard question, because it's so different for each individual. The main differences between amateur and pro actually are quite simple. When you're an amateur, it's all about the boxing. Get yourself to the gym, put the graft in, and just be prepared to fight all year round. Absolutely anybody, all elite fighters. But I find with the pro games, it's about how many tickets you can sell, you know, your exposure, your reach, and from a commercial value, because that counts for a lot. You get fighters who are getting avoided for title shots that they should have because they're deemed to be too much risk without enough reward, and that reward is in the fact that they're relatively unknown or they don't bring much commercial value to the table. So yeah, as a professional fighter, you're essentially a business. You need to look at yourself as a product. The first thing you need to invest in is your research and development. So that would be your training and how meticulous you are in your development as a fighter. And then secondly, you need to focus heavily on your marketing, employ the right people within your organization to keep the cog turning. So those would be the main differences between amateur and pro. And in regards to knowing when to turn pro, I'd advise any fighter, make sure they get as much amateur experience as possible. I don't think you can replace it. What you're learning in amateurs is you're fighting under high pressure, because usually in a tournament where if you lose you're knocked out and you wait all year for this tournament, you're fighting against elite fighters who are also coming to win, and then you have 3 rounds to work them out and win. And if you lost the first round, you've got 2 more rounds to work up a game plan to change the way the fight's going on so that you can come out the victor at the end. And just having to process boxing under those pressures in such a short time space just elevates your boxing IQ to a level that I think you need it to be at when you're boxing at a high level in the pros. So if, for example, your goals of being a professional is to win like an area title, maybe an English title, then perhaps you can have limited amateur experience. But if you want to be a world champion like I want to be, then 100% you need to get as much amateur experience as possible, and ideally boxing internationally for your country. I've had hostile situations where I went to qualify for the Nigerian amateur boxing team, where I had essentially an entire community calling for my blood just as I'm going into the ring, and it's tight, hot, everyone's all around, they're speaking all the native languages, a bit of English here and there, and those character building experiences have allowed me to now come into the pro fearlessly. Yeah, it's a subjective thing, but I'd say make sure that your boxing's on point first, because without the boxing, all of the commercial things that you do don't mean anything. When I first sat with Frank Warren, the first thing he said to me, well, not the first, but one of the first things he said to me was, behind everything else, your boxing has to be on point, and that's the truth. You can have the best PR team, the best marketing, you can look the best, you could be a model like a top boxer, you know, but if you don't perform in the ring, none of it matters. Here's a question from some Asian boy, underscore. I like the name. Great work on your videos and vlogs. Would love to know your amateur record and your hardest, most memorable amateur fights. My amateur record was about 45 fights, about 36 wins. I had about 8 or 9 fights as a novice, and then I went into the national championships, and ever since then I've only boxed, I only did box elite fighters. So although I only had 45 amateur fights, about 36 of those were against elite fighters, you know, boxing for London, boxing in national tournaments, winning different tournaments, boxing for England. My hardest amateur fights, I would say the last fight I had at middleweight, before moving up a weight. I made the weight really badly. I was drained, I couldn't feel my legs even before I got into the ring, and I got in, I lost to a guy that I had no business losing to. And I remember I even got a standing 8 count because he punched me, and it wasn't that the punch hurt, but I was just so weak, I moved backwards, so I staggered backwards just to find my balance. I remember it so vividly because I genuinely wasn't hurt, I was just weak. And the ref, obviously, it looks like I was hurt, and the ref gave me a standing 8 count, I lost the fight. No qualms with that in terms of the decision that was made by the judges. And after that, I just decided I can't be putting myself through this and losing to people that I should be winning against. So I moved up to light heavyweight, which is 81 kilos, middleweight was 75. I was weighing in 78, 79 kilos whilst everyone else was coming down the weight to 81. And actually I stopped the first 3 guys I boxed at light heavyweight, and the 4th guy I knocked down. So the Joshua Boatsi fight was quite a good one. I had a very comfortable first 2 rounds. Working like a horse, and I sat down in between the 2nd and 3rd round, and one of the coaches said to me, "What are you doing? You're gonna get tired." And as soon as they said it, my legs went numb. So I got up, and I couldn't feel my legs. I was all over the ring. Joshua, as strong as he is, as fit as he is, just came forward, coming at me. It wasn't that he was landing any meaningful shots, it was more just that the pressure he was putting on made him look so good. And you know, I fell over a few times out of just sheer exhaustion. Again, I didn't feel it leading up to the end of the 2nd round. It's only when that coach said it and brought it into my mind, because leading up to that I was focused. So getting through that round was something that was really difficult. Then there was a guy that I boxed as well, Bryce Goodridge. He was a tough guy. I felt like Bryce Goodridge was, is one of the best guys I boxed in the amateurs. Really tall guy, taller than me, believe it or not. Light-skinned guy, boxes for England. And there were just nuances and things that he did in the ring that made me respect him in terms of, I wouldn't give away too much, but there were nuances in the things that he did that made me feel like, wow, like, you're really a good boxer. So big up yourself, Bryce. And 500 gram, and I say gram because it's got 3 M's in there. It says, no questions, just want to rate you for always representing your own. Keep striving, champ, a lot of people look up to you. Thanks a lot, 500 grams. Cheers for the big up. What was your experience like representing Nigeria, and what advice would you give? My experience representing Nigeria was honour, representing my birth country. Getting into the team was difficult, as I alluded to earlier, having to trial under hostile circumstances, and I needed that strength of character to stay composed and still deliver. Not just because the people are making noise outside of the ring, but also, basically, I'm thankful for growing up in East London. And I don't say this much, but I grew up in a very rough area with a lot of rough people, going through a lot of rough things. I've faced death more times than I care to remember, and I think those things, they have helped prepare me mentally, where it's very hard for me to be faced. And the reason why I bring that up is that in this environment where you're in another country, in a third world country, where the entire community is in there calling for your blood, you're about to fight their local hero, and you're meant to perform and beat him up. Now, being there alone, one of the things that was going through my mind was, what if I beat him up and they will jump in the ring and beat me up? You know, but like I said, with the experiences I've had growing up and the strength of character I've had, I was just like, what will be, will be. I'm here now. I can only control what I can, which is outboxing this guy or these guys, and that's exactly what I did to get on the team. There's a natural question that arises from this, which would be, would you do it again? And the answer is, absolutely. Michelle Boss 05, and she asks, are you considering fighting in the US? I'm more than considering, Michelle. I would love to box in the United States. There's a lot of great champions out there who I'd love to go out there and compete against. There are venues in the United States I'd love to box at, including the Madison Square Garden. These are all places I'd love to box in. Boxing's booming in the UK, but ultimately you still need to go to the US and make a mark. Once you're big in the US and in the UK, then basically you've clocked the top level of boxing. It would be great to meet some of my US fans. Right, some Twitter questions. We've got a question from Martin Theobald, New Age Boxing Podcast. 2 routes, which would you take? Take 5 years, going through the Southern area, English, British, and then World Champ. And the second route is take 2 years, WBO European, and then World Champ. The truth is, Martin, I just want to be a world champion as soon as possible, but at the same time, I want to be a world champion and dominate. Like I said, I would like to be undisputed. So it's all dependent on the pace at which I progress within my boxing. So I made it clear from when I first turned professional that I wanted to be a world champion in 3 years. So that's just over 2 years from now. I haven't necessarily thought of the process. All I know is that I would love to be a world champion in that time, providing that I hit my peak around that time. So that's the aim, that was what I'm working towards, and the exact route is not an importance to me. It's just that's the time I've given myself, because then it means I have to work harder to work to it. Now, I could end up being a world champion earlier, or I can end up being a world champion later than that. But having a target and aim to work to means that I stay motivated. I wake up every day with a goal set in my mind, and it fuels me with the energy to be able to box, make videos like this, model, and do a whole bunch of different things, because I'm drawing my energy from the universe because I have a goal. And that's basically it. Ooh. Next question comes from Dave, that's at DUO84 on Twitter. He says, in your opinion, pound for pound, who is better? A prime Roy Jones Jr. or prime Floyd Mayweather Jr.? Wow, what a question, Dave, what a question. I don't know, I really don't know. Then, I don't know, man, that's a hard one. I guess just like you, I'd love to watch it, because I'd love to think that Roy Jones, with his athleticism and his punching power, would do it, but then Floyd in his prime was also a puncher. He was really quick, he had great athleticism, he had better footwork than Roy Jones. I would say he was sharper defensively, but Roy Jones was sharper offensively. I really don't know. Actually, I'm going to go for Floyd. I'm going to go for Floyd simply based on the fact that Floyd has always been a thinker, and even though Roy Jones potentially from the beginning might have given him problems, I think Floyd would have worked out a way to beat Roy Jones, especially taking advantage of Roy Jones's not poor footwork, but average footwork. So I'm gonna have to lean very slightly towards Floyd Mayweather. It's definitely not dominant. Who knows? It's just one of those fights that I guess we'll never get to see. And then another question from Ross. Lots of S's in there. So it's Ross Bayes or Bayes. And he says, if you could make one change in boxing, what would it be? One change in boxing I would make is 2 governing bodies. I would make it so that the corruption is eradicated. I would make it so that there is mandatory drug testing for every professional boxer 365 days a year, regardless of whether or not you're taking a break. Even when you retire, you still have to be tested for about 2 years after you retired, because there's nothing stopping a fighter from retiring for a year or 2, taking drugs, doing all sorts of stuff, and then coming back. So, and then I'll get rid of I'll call them Mickey Mouse titles, even though I'll box for one. I'll just make 1 world champion per weight division, and I would have an interim title for the champion. And for everybody else, you all go into different tournaments like the WBSS or eliminators to get your chance to challenge for the world title. So for me, that's the difference I'll make in boxing. We've got another question from James, that's round 8 on Twitter. Shout out James. It says, when we first met way back when, you told me to remember your name. You will be on the big stage. What advice would you give to youngers today who think they can't do it? You have to visualize to materialize. You know, we're attracting what we want. The closest thing you can relate it to is the law of attraction. But I don't necessarily follow, you know, the book The Secret to, down to the T, because just like my boxing, I take different things from different places. So I take things from religion and different spiritual talks and certain aspects of sacred knowledge to compile my belief system. But in short, it's there's a frequency that you emit when you think and when you speak, especially when it's backed by emotion. So what you really need to do is be deliberate and intentional about whatever it is that you want to achieve. Be mindful that you don't limit your dreams and your goals based on what you currently can do, because your current circumstance is not your permanent circumstance. So you need to feel free to dream big. Dream as big as you can, and whatever you do, do not be afraid of failure, because the fear of failure stops so many people from dreaming big. Dream as big as you want. Tell anyone that you need to tell. What you believe is all that matters. Just soak in this image of me standing here like this. I got a question from Dave again, DUO84. It says, if you could build a perfect boxer, whose attributes would you take from to do it? For example, Tyson's power, Mayweather's defense, Klitschko's jab, Lomachenko's movement, etc. And for this, I'll take all of those points that you just made, Dave. So all of those, and Roberto Duran's ferociousness and infighting, Sugar Ray Leonard's ability to dig deep whenever it was necessary, Tommy Hearns' right hand, Muhammad Ali's unwavering self-belief, and how he was unforgiving in how confident and willing he was to speak his mind to the world regardless of what anyone else had to say, his ability to get into his opponent's minds before getting into the ring, Roy Jones Jr.'s athleticism, Larry Holmes' jab or Klitschko jab, or Lennox Lewis' jab, I have Evander Holyfield's durability, Prince Nazim's flashiness and ability to throw from unorthodox angles. He could be here, bang, and there, bang, just hip hopping and skipping about. Joe Calzaghe's work rate, Mike Tyson's head movement, Muhammad Ali's footwork. You put all of those qualities into a fighter, I mean, you've got a complete package right there, man. Right, so this is from Eyes.Ebony. Great going thus far. Really enjoying watching your progress and growth. It's actually very inspiring, which is why the question I would like to ask are: 1. What keeps you motivated? What keeps me motivated are the things that I know I'm going to do after boxing, but generally my success within boxing is going to make those things possible, and those things I'm going to do after boxing are way bigger than me, because I have plans of making a massive positive impact in this world to help as many people as I possibly can to live a better quality of living. And without getting into details, because those aspirations are so much bigger than I am, it gives me the drive every day. Whenever I doubt myself, whenever I feel sorry for myself, I think of the people that I'm going to help and what I'm going to do to help this world, and that always keeps me going. Second question, do you ever get discouraged? Yes, like anybody doing anything. There are times when, you know, doubt creeps in, or you question just how well you're going to do, or is this even worth it? And all these things kick in, I think, naturally, just especially when you're going through a hard time. If I've had a really hard week of training, I'm weak, I'm hungry, can't eat much because I'm making weight, you know, I'm sitting down and everything hurts, I don't want to move, don't want to talk to anyone. Sometimes I do just sit back, and then I've got another session to go to, and I do just sit back sometimes, I'm like, why am I even doing all this? The only reason why I keep going is because I think, like I just said, of my end goal and what I'm doing it for, and because it's so much bigger than me, I end up having to get up, because then the excuses that I'm giving are unwarranted compared to the suffering that's going on in the world that I'm trying to help with. So, but I do have a strong mind as well, which means that when I get discouraged, it never really sinks in so deep. You know, it's surface, and I get control of it before it roots itself deep down in me. Next question from Grimming Ghost. That's on Instagram. It was _Grimming Ghost. It says, do you still plan to get into tourism? Right, so the reason why he asks this is because I also have a YouTube channel called Adventuma. Go check out Adventuma. It's my other YouTube channel that's got just under 1,000 subscribers right now, even though I haven't been too active on it. So before turning pro as a boxer, I started that YouTube channel because travel was another passion of mine. I was traveling the world and sharing my experiences, giving people advice on traveling. The long-term goal of that is to go into the travel and tourism industry as a businessman. I still have those aspirations, so go subscribe on that, guys, and hopefully make me hit over 1,000 in that. I'm always going to travel. There's a lot of you who follow me know already. I'm only 3 professional fights in, but still after all my fights I tend to go away on some form of a holiday / training, so I mix the two. So I'm mixing 2 of my greatest passions together, which are boxing and traveling. So you know, I'm based in London, England. I box, then I get to travel, do some training, explore the world a bit, come back, do my next fight, and I keep doing that. And I'm going to continue to share experiences. So keep track of Adventuma, guys. I'm also on Instagram on Adventuma. It's a busy guy, and Twitter too. I've got a question from Idroma. This came through on my WhatsApp story. She says, how were you selected to run the commercial for Glow? Glow.com Nigeria is a telecommunications company in Nigeria, similar to EE. And whilst I was out in Nigeria training for the 2016 Olympic qualifiers, an agent came in to cast us for a trial for a video campaign. Obviously I smashed it out of everybody else because, you know, God did bless me. Mama did look after me. But yeah, so I auditioned, got the role, got to film it just before going to the Olympic qualifiers in Cameroon. Yeah, that's basically how I got it. It's a very simple story actually. And she's got a second question. Idroma also asks is, how do you prepare for the major fight? I prepare like I prepare for every fight. I'm diligent, I'm honest to myself, I graft hard, and I always believe that I'm going to win and that everything I'm doing is potentially what's going to make me win. That's how I do it for every single fight, regardless of the opponent. Wow, go through them all. So there you have it. That was the list of questions. 1 second. You know, get used to seeing me like this with belts and all that. I hope you liked it and enjoyed it. If the answers I've given or the questions you've heard have sparked you to ask any more questions, feel free to go for it. We could do this Q&A session another time. If there's any other type of content you'd like me to do, I'm totally open to it. So make suggestions in the comment box down below. Whatever it is you think you'd love to see me do, add in a comment below, ask for it, then I'd more than likely do for you guys, because as much as this vlog is about showing a difference, well, it is about showing more of myself, but also it's about engaging with you guys. So hope you liked it, hope you enjoyed it. If you learned things from this, share it with someone that you think might benefit from it. Share it with people that you love, share it with anyone that might be remotely interested. Remember to like this video, because the likes help with the exposure on YouTube. Comment, because engagement again helps with exposure on YouTube, and shares definitely help. So definitely share it if you can. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for sitting through this far with me. I've been Umar, Top Boxer Sadiq, English champion, coming soon. Peace out.